Stewardship is a path of many steps. The steps that woodland owners take are linked to their goals, values, and their vision for their land. In Baldwin, Maine, northwest of Sebago Lake, a community of woodland owners is taking shape.
Well, I anticipate that I'll have a more open woodland. The part that we're working on right now is to increase growth in the understory. It is going to be a crop tree, in this case red oak, that will make actually the woodland more valuable than it had been.
Our intentions here were to release a lot of the red oak crop trees. We have some other varieties of trees that were also pretty healthy that we could release, but the primary goal was to open up the crowns of the red oak and give them some space to grow.
Well, I think this is pretty much Jeff's call. I mean, we're doing what Jeff had laid out, following his marking of trees that was done pretty well in advance, given it's been a while now to get the harvesting underway. And Chad seems to be perfectly happy with what Jeff has laid out and seems to be following this pretty carefully.
It gives you a chance to let the forest grow and turn into what you want it to turn into, and hopefully you have years to come of the land being able to produce, instead of sometimes you see land that nobody maintained and either it's killing itself or it's somebody cut it way too hard and doesn't have anything to grow or take out for the next 50, 60 years.
Well, I think all management plans are just that. I mean, it's the way you want to manage the total outcome. Some of the ways you get there can deviate a little bit from what might have been etched in stone. In fact, the management plan doesn't really tie you down to a particular path that you must follow.
I like to talk to the landowner first before I do anything, because I know I'd want to know who was on my land before I let anybody on my land. I also, along with working with the forester, I like to know what the landowner wants and how they want to take care of everything themselves. It's good to go through the forester, but just as good to have a good relationship with each landowner too.
This was one of the first opportunities I've had to work with Chad in a commercial situation. A lot of the work I've done with him in the past is on his own property and his family's land. So we spent a lot of time walking around, looking at things and talking about what the ultimate goal was and how to get there. We also kind of planned the trails together, and I let him move them if he needed to, adjust for certain things. If there was a tree that was too large to make it around a corner, we could straighten a trail out, or I allowed him some leeway to do what he thinks is best.
Fortunately, I had a forester market, so I knew which trees to take, and now and then you got to take one or two others just to get a trail to go through. But having the forester market with the dots on the trees really helps me out. I can't really, riding around on the skid, I can't look through the roof to see the tops to figure out which ones are dying, not looking good to take out. So if you go to the back of where you want to cut and you're skidding your way out, you can, if you got to pull a tree around stuff, you can hit the tree you're going to take anyways, and if you ruin that, who cares? But if you ruin the nice stick of veneer behind it, you get kind of mad at yourself at the end of the day.
Typically, I like to be on site once a day. It doesn't always allow me. My schedule doesn't always allow me to be there every day, but I was here probably every other day, maybe every third day, and I'll spend a couple hours walking through areas that have been harvested to see if there's anything that stands out to me that needs to be corrected. I'll also walk into the area where he's actively working, have him shut down and talk to me about what his plan is for the area he's moving into. So that way we'll kind of come to problems. If I see something he's done, I can correct it going forward.
Having the forester out there in the first place, a lot of times the landowners get somebody that they already know and trust, and if the forester trusts the harvester, it helps me out get a good lot to work on.
One reason I prefer contractors who are open to talking with foresters and landowners is because you'll you'll understand what their concerns are. And he brought a lot of them to me before we even started. He was nervous to harvest trees that weren't marked for, the reasons that most people are. You don't want to cut stuff that's not painted because it's not what's to be sold. So I allowed him to cut a few things, and he understands what the products are that he's harvesting. So if we can avoid cutting high-value trees, if we can harvest a few other lower quality trees to achieve our goal or move a trail, then I'll allow him to do that.
Now and then you walk into a lot, and I could walk in here and guess that I'd be a week to do a job, and it turns out to be 2. And
I'm still committed to working with the forester. I think the forester has a particular way of looking at the landscape that I don't always see firsthand. And so I rely a good bit on his vision. And particularly, the two of us have to accommodate the needs of the harvester.
I started with 2 other contractors first. We walked a lot, and they didn't think it was something that suited them. At the time, the markets were a little different. Primarily what we were harvesting was hardwood pulp and firewood. Chad is the harvester we went with, and he is also a retail firewood supplier. So we were able to get a little bit more income for the products harvested for the landowner, and he also had the right equipment to suit this type of harvest.
Actually, someone who's comfortable doing the job, I think, is as important as anything else. I mean, I can always second guess and look over his shoulder and say whether I feel he's doing the work that I want done. But I like it because here's just one person, and I don't have to go before a committee and see who's actually bringing it out and who's doing the cutting. It's a one-person operation, and he's just very easy to work with.
This was a very small operation. I think we harvested about 10 acres total. And so to do that, you need to find somebody who's willing to work on such a small job.
Well, I think everything needs to be scale, and this, to me, is the appropriate scale for what we need done. I mean, this isn't a big job. In fact, many loggers wouldn't have even been interested because there's not enough work to do. But for one person, there's plenty of work. I think he's finding he has more than he anticipated.
having a smaller skidder, if you're on a smaller lot and you're really trying to protect the crop trees and everything, you can kind of weave in around stuff that you need to. And some people like the bigger mechanized operations, and they do. A lot of them do a nice job, but with me, I can take quite a charge of wood right through a really small area, and the skidder is I think a lot lighter and a lot smaller than most of the new stuff coming out, and that way it's being light, you don't create the ruts.
We installed this rock crossing prior to the harvest, mainly to create a stable crossing on the stream. This was something we corrected that was done poorly in the past. There were 2 crossings on this same stream about 100 feet apart. So we created one main crossing with geotextile fabric and large riprap on top. And this is something we'll maintain and use into the future.
Try to do everything I can to just avoid having anything run towards the brooks. If I can, if I'm on a slope going to a brook, I try to go crosswise, so if the water running off the hill, it'll go down. If you make any ruts, it'll stop in the ruts instead of shooting right down to the stream.
There was an existing road system here. We stayed off a few of those to provide access for the landowner for recreation, because with this operation you end up with a lot of slash, and so we tried to keep the slash off some of the existing roads. Most of the roads we tried to stay off of steep slopes.
Now, the main path out to the staging area does have a hill on it. It's been used for skidding before. I have some water bars on there, and of course they get obliterated while the work's being done. Those are going to have to be put back in place. There will be some touches here and there. I don't want the roads clogged up. I mean, one of the real advantages here is some of the area that was growing in that is supposed to be for harvest roads is now getting opened up again. So far it's working to my advantage, and I just want to make sure that it winds up that way.
We're looking at the landing site for the job here. We've left it cleaner than it was to start. We pushed a lot of the old stuff off that was left here from the previous harvesters. So we'll come back in the spring and seed this down with a conservation mix, which is intended for wildlife. Not really necessary for water here because it's fairly level, but it's a good practice to do, and it'll provide a wildlife opening in the future.
So far, it all looks appropriate to the scale of the job and my interest in how I want it done.
We had to leave behind some softwood pulp here because of the markets, and those trees aren't really in the way of our ultimate goal. We were still able to release a lot of the crop trees we wanted to. So those trees will be ones that'll stand probably stagnant because they're pretty poor quality trees, but they'll still be here next time around. We'll hope to have a better market for those in the future and probably remove them at that time. I think the entire process took from forest management plan to harvest closeout about 2 years total. The harvest was active for about 3 weeks from the time the skidder was dropped off to the time it was loaded and taken out. So there's a lot of pre-planning that goes into the process, and then when you're on site, you want to make sure you're there to make sure that everything is done the way you want. But it's a slower process because you're planning 50 years into the future, sometimes even longer than that. So you want to make sure you have your ducks in a row, and the process takes time to do that.
It's nice to see a spot when you're all done that's all the crop trees are left. You got some undergrowth coming up, and hopefully leave it nicer than it was when I started.
He did a great job as far as what was marked and how to lay out the harvest, and we achieved what we set out to do here.